Scott, as a technology firm in a really dynamic industry, how do you avoid kind of getting stuck? Because you know, there's a big investment you make in terms of equipment and as things continue to shift and slide, how are you able to kind of keep ahead of that and afford to keep ahead of that?
It's probably the biggest pitfall. The first screen I bought for Brad Paisley that was not the LED screens where it's just built in and solid. We were doing projection up until then, and he was the first one to go LED. And the screen was 15 feet tall and 20 feet wide, and it was $1.3 million. And that floored me. It took me 2 months to make that decision. And but once you get going with it, obviously then the rental rates are much higher. But one of my competitors here in town really overextended. It's really easy to get greedy and try and do more and more acts and buy more and more LED. But if you get upside down in debt, you can go under, and they're hanging by.
So how have you avoided getting into that trap?
I try now. At first, I went wildly in debt when I did that one, but I now try and pay for 50% at least of everything I buy. And more recently, I've been trying to up that percentage. My goal is to be debt-free, which in my industry is pretty unheard of. But I'm getting there. I think in 2 years I might be, which would be great, until some massive project calls and I get greedy and buy a ton of stuff.
Or some breakthrough comes through.
But we have LED on just about every tour now. And back then, Brad was the only one to have it. We had 14 tours last year with LED on them. And Brad's wall is 60 feet wide by 32 feet tall, with some other walls flanking it. So we have a lot of inventory now, and I have a lot of debt. But compared to my cash flow, it's something I'm comfortable with. But it's one of my main goals is to get out from under it, because it's a crazy world. It can change, and technology can change. What cost me $1.2 million back then, I just finished paying for it. Financed it for 6 years, and that same product now would be about $300,000. So if you don't pay for it fast, you're making payments on something that people don't even want. Like that stuff's actually really heavy, and nobody wants it anymore because the new stuff's super lightweight, and people are doing massive walls. You couldn't do a 60-foot wide wall of that stuff. The roof in the Nashville Arena wouldn't hold it.
Now, you guys got hit pretty hard by the flood. And I would imagine that had an impact on
a huge impact
on your capital, and
yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
It was brutal. Well, so many people got hit at once that the insurance companies couldn't keep up. And my warehouse was right by the river, and we went over waist deep. And if you're in an active warehouse, anything that's valuable that you use all the time, you keep on wheels. So most of the value of my warehouse was underwater. We had several tours out, which helped, but Paisley was in. That didn't help. The insurance guys would show up at 8 in the morning, and they'd work for 3 hours, and by around 11 it would get so hot and disgusting in my warehouse that they'd leave and go do other things because they were so overwhelmed. So that put me about 28 days into the flood with them still saying I couldn't really touch my inventory and not writing me a check because they were still trying to inventory it. At that point it hit $4 million and change in loss, and so I called my agent, and I was just trying to get Paisley out. I got Paisley out the door somehow. The air freight bills were insane from China, flying LED products over. And, I mean, it was nuts. Just Paisley's freight bill that month was 60 grand, just flying gear in. And that's just money you throw away. That's not an investment. That's gone. But when I finally got Paisley out the door, I turned to the insurance agent and went, okay, you're at $4 million and change, and I have $1 million in insurance. How about we write me a check? And he gave me a bunch of reasons why not, and I went home and thought about them. And the next morning I said, I love you, and I'm suing you. Write me $1 million check. And they put someone on an airplane that day, and I had a check the next day. But we still were over $3 million in the hole. So this hasn't been the best year for us. But we survived, we're healthy. We'd be a little healthier if it hadn't happened. But because I wasn't upside down in debt, I was able to roll through it. If I had been more aggressive, I might not be sitting here right
now. And you guys have also been pretty careful to avoid debt at all costs. Talk about how you manage that also in a technology-intensive business, obviously not with the number of zeros that Scott has to deal with, but
Yeah.
a lot of zeros for a couple guys just fresh out of school.
Yeah, we when Kurt and I started Just Kidding, which is our video production company, we started it out of like Hillside, so it was just nothing major. We had president of MGM come in to Hillside while we were moving out, so we kind of had to clean up and like pretend like it was a normal apartment because he had no idea it was a college like dorm room kind of thing. So anyway, because we were college students, we had to spend literally like no money because we didn't have money to spend on things. So we shot a lot of senior recitals, we did a lot of things, and we just saved up and always spent what we made on new computers, on new cameras, new everything. And so that's just kind of the way that we did everything. We bootstrapped. So we never took out a loan. We never did any of that. Then when Olympia came around, we just kind of started thinking about it. We've looked at possibly doing some loans for some things, and we just decided no. We can actually do it the same way we can bootstrap. And so still to this day, we're totally debt-free, never taken out a loan.
It's a lot more interesting in the technology side because, you know, there's a lot of companies, you know, that, I mean, mostly it's your time invested in things like that, and not to say that that isn't, you know, money that is spending. That's actually something that's hard for me to figure out. That's through Tyler and Drew is a lot easier to figure out, you know, of your time and things like that. But as a technology, you know, you can actually, you know, if there's a product that you are selling and you are receiving some type of revenue upfront, you know, and working with your development and your costs, you know your costs going in of how much it's going to be to possibly make. And if you're working with, you know, if someone's here that has a website company and you are working with, you know, some type of developers, you know, you can set them in and lock them in on a project rate rather than them going hour to hour. So actually, if you can figure out that cost and then, you know, receive your 50% up front, you know, and use that as your operating cost and don't, you know, use that as your personal salary checks or something like that, great, I just got a bonus, you can actually, you know, not acquire really any debt or anything like that right off the bat.
So, Scott, where do you see things? These guys are just entering the market. What can they expect in 2015, 2020? What does the industry look like from your perspective?
Man.
Or you want to just talk next
live
year?
Industry?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, yeah, the live industry.
I think next year.
Yeah. It seems that the live industry is a little more
It's really been
consistent.
thriving.
Yeah.
I mean, in a down economy, people still want entertainment. People still want to spoil themselves. So, thankfully, my side of the business, the entertainment side, has done great. I used to do a lot of corporate. My corporate clients were Ford, General Motors, and a huge mortgage company. They were my big clients. And 50% of my business was corporate. It's now like 3% of my business.
So you would do the big video walls at the
like Ford would send
conferences.
their 50 best dealers to Hawaii and have the Doobie Brothers play, and my company would provide all the video support. It was great. We go to Hawaii for a week, really easy, and you know, do their board meetings, which are boring, but who cares? Because for lunch you're sitting at the beach. But all that went away.
With the Doobie Brothers,
Yeah. The mortgage company got bought as it was tanking, and Ford and GM has completely wiped out all those in-house promotional things because in GM's case, they took money from the taxpayers, so they literally cannot spend money on internally, and Ford decided not to as part of their trying to keep from getting taxpayers' money. So that evaporated, but the good news is the music side took off. So I'd like to see corporate come back, and but I think it's going to take a little while longer than they.
So you're fairly insulated from a lot of the stuff in the
We
other
are,
side.
yeah. When one went away, the other grew. You know, everybody. And I think we're going to see entertainment continue to grow because of iTunes. It's the way bands make money now. They have to tour to generate the kind of revenue that they'd like to generate because album sales are nowhere near as profitable as they were even just a few years ago. So that's really good for me. All the things that have been kind of killing the national music industry have worked out pretty well for live entertainment from my side of things.
How about on the app side? I mean, that's even a more difficult thing to prognosticate given it's so new. Are you guys trying to think ahead and see where you're going to be and see what it might look like?
Yeah, we definitely are. I think when you think about technology and making money and making a play, I mean, we think about two things. We think about experience, and then we think about solutions. So for a lot of these brands that we work with, like Kenny Chesney, Fonru, we're trying to enhance their experience. And for you guys who have iPhones and Androids, you're downloading games because you want to have a good experience. So for a platform that's very new, and there's probably half of you that have a smartphone and don't, over the next couple of years, it's just kind of a brand new playing field where you can have new experiences and new solutions. So whether that be a utility to help you do something, or a game to just have pass the time, or an experience while you're en route, or if you just want to chill out and listen to No Shoes Radio. I mean, those are very specific to us, but when we think about new things and new opportunities, and we're thinking about ideas on, I mean, the #1 tool on your smartphone is a camera. So we're thinking about how can we better give everyone a better experience with their camera, give them more power to use it, and things like that. So the opportunity over the next year is just astronomical, but there's so much competition. So we're just trying to be creative.
You really are in the part of the industry that is the most dynamic right now. And Howard Stern holding up your app and saying this is the future of the music industry. He's right, but what's that going to be, and who's going to control it, and how's it going to look? You certainly have got some good traction in this, clearly, but how do you make sure that you're one of the winners? If there is all this competition, you're doing well. What are you doing to position yourself to be one of the winners?
I think, there was recently just kind of a lot of insight on, even just the Apple Corporation. I mean, talk about a talented company. And, there's probably this many people in this room that go into creating really killer things over the course of 10 years or whatever. But, it doesn't always come down to who has the coolest thing. It's about the choices that you make in making those cool things. So the choice of when to release something, how to release it, what's in it, how's your pricing going to be. That all takes effect over how cool or not cool something is. So the #1 thing that we always will focus on is the quality and how it looks and operates. We will sit here and tell you that we will not let something go out the door unless we think that our parents and grandparents can use it. And that is simply because I do not want to hear from my mother how to use this, something that we just released. And if I don't get that